Welcome to the Digital Lifestyle Show. Coming up this week, Gary and Richard are here, and we've got lots to talk about. We'll be talking about the May 2020 update, Big Patch Tuesday, updates coming out for that. We'll be talking about the insider builds, not very much going on there. 20 years since the Microsoft antitrust, when Microsoft were being told they were going to be split into separate companies. What would have happened if they'd done that? We've got a bit of chat about that. We've got talking about Beeb, the new virtual assistant from the BBC for Windows 10, and lots more. So let's go over to Gary and Richard. Gary, Richard, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
And we're back again.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're back again, and just about got everything working in Teams once again. And we've got plenty to talk about tonight. It's not a huge amount of news, but there is some interesting things to try. We've got a new virtual assistant from the BBC. We've got May 2020 updates already, even though it's just rolling out. We've got a patch Tuesday. We've got, I would say, are we going to dedicate a whole half hour for the show for all the fast ring, interesting news on fast ring builds?
At least.
At least.
Absolutely.
Yes, I think we will have a massive chat on fast rings build because there's not been a lot on that, but we can talk about that as well. And we've got some other news coming through as well. So where should we start? Well, let's start on the May 2020 update. So as we record on Tuesday evening, just as we were joining, I was joining Richard, said, "Oh, there's an update." I've just checked for it, and there is, and it's a big one, I think.
Yes, indeed. There's a fairly substantial. I mean, obviously it's patch Tuesday, isn't it? So there's a fairly substantial amount of updates, and yes, even though it's barely 2 weeks since it came out, there's a huge update, including all kinds of stuff that fixes TONOR stuff, issues around MSI files, network file folders. So, and of course, the swathe of security updates that we get every month from Microsoft. So yes, it may be new Windows, but it's same old patches.
Yeah, there's so it takes the build up to what we're just a few up to 19041.339, yeah, from 241 or something like that.
That's right. But the good news is, I believe lurking somewhere in that build, that also deals with the problem I think that was stopping Windows 10 2004 going to Surface Pro 7 and Surface Laptop 3 devices. Because I think it fixes the always on, always connected issue, which is why it got blocked. So I think as a result of this patch, we'll see Windows 10 2004 going to more devices, which is good. Doesn't change the fact that I should really have tested that beforehand, but it's good. And I'm sure that'll make those users quite happy, particularly since I know a lot of developers who swear by their Surface Pro 7s and laptops. So they'll be quite pleased to see things like the Windows Linux 2 coming down for them to try. And then complain about how slow it is accessing files outside of the Linux file system. Using some people.
Yeah, well, exactly, yeah. Yeah, it would be good if they can get that to the Surface devices, because that's been kind of, we mentioned last week, that it seems quite funny that all the testing that was going on these updates, and the one probably the devices that are most common use in Redmond are Surface devices, and that's the ones that weren't getting the update.
Yeah, I mean, if I had £1 every time some Microsoft employees flashed his Surface device on Twitter or something, I'd be a very wealthy man now. Yeah. So I'm very surprised that got through with that kind of breakage in it. I mean, it looks like they'll be removing the block or the safeguard hold, as I like to call it, in the next couple of weeks. So I think we should see the next few weeks more devices being able to receive Windows 10 2004. I don't think they'll necessarily be pushing it out. I think it'll be still be a case of check for updates, but it should now install, which again, it's good. It's what you want to see. It's if there's a problem, you throw up a block. It's just in this instance, as we said, this particular problem shouldn't really have happened.
Yeah. And I noticed my old Surface Pro 3 was offered the update this week. I think that was on Monday, so it hadn't previously. So it is going out to some devices like that aren't got this always on connected standby bug. But my 2016 Dell XPS still hasn't been offered the update yet. So I suppose it's like this, be very cautious and rolling out over time.
That's right, yeah. And I mean, there are some other things fixed as well. I think around other bits and pieces that are a bit iffy. Although I think there was a new thing cropped up. Was it last week? The Intel Optane stuff, I think, popped up.
Yeah.
Again, it doesn't affect many users. It's to do with the M10, H10 Intel Optane chips, and what these for? These are basically there to boost SSD performance. So, and it's not as if it would stop working. It would be you just get thrown errors up, and the reason for that was that it was expecting a certain drivers to be there that weren't there, and so it complained about missing DLLs. I think Intel published a guide on how to resolve the issue, which, if you're lucky, Ian might include in the show notes. Microsoft hasn't actually put that in its Windows 10 health dashboard yet, so I don't think they've officially acknowledged that problem with the Windows 10 and Optane and Intel Optane H10 M10 chips, which is surprising, really, because I know their education social media person has acknowledged that there are problems with that Windows 10 chipset, so strange one.
Mm. I mean, I found no issues with it running on any of the devices that I've got it on. So the release preview, this Surface Laptop 2 is on release preview, and it's had it on for a few weeks now. No issues at all. But it's not really surprising because I think some of the devices have had it since January. So
yeah, exactly.
It's funny, isn't it? No matter how much time you spend testing these things, Microsoft has over a year and a half testing it, but it's still there's issues crop up. But that's software development for you.
It is indeed. Of course, there's the Windows. I mean, I can't imagine how it. I mean, even now, I think it was how they managed to get Windows 10 working on such a variety of devices. There's nearly an infinite amount of flavors. And I should point out as well that it's worked on all my devices here, and I have I think 2 machines now upgraded to Windows 10 2004 because it came down and it worked. So I've had no problems personally. I was just disappointed to see the number of issues after just how long this thing spent in release preview and in the slow ring and the fast ring. So
yeah. And talking of fast ring, we did get a fast ring build last week.
Yeah.
It wasn't the most exciting of fast ring. In fact, well, the monthly patch, this patch that's came out today, has a lot more in it than the fast ring build did.
It certainly did. So this is build 19640, I think.
Yeah.
It wasn't the 9640 the name of a computer that was the next, I think, a private commercial version of a TI 9948 back in the early 80s.
I think you're getting pretty obscure there. I know you like your TI 99 stuff, but you're getting pretty obscure there.
That's really obscure. So I'll just park that to one side and not because I'll go into that. Yeah, because it's a lot more exciting than what's in this build. That's for sure. So I don't know about you guys, but I was hoping, into June now. I thought perhaps there'll be some new toys. You might see maybe some of the WWSL2 GPU stuff. Perhaps you might even see some Windows 10X bits creeping in. And what did we get? We got it'll handle you accidentally pressing space in front of your username now, and storage sense won't wipe your downloads folder if you're syncing it with a third-party cloud provider. So, woo! Yay!
Yeah. That last one has bitten a few people, so I think that's quite a good fix. But yeah, it
is. It's hardly a new user interface, though, is it?
It's hardly anything really exciting. And as I said last time, I'd love to be able to tell you there's great new stuff under the skin, but there really isn't.
So I'm guessing they're still in kind of a holding pattern. So I am hopeful that by the end of June we will see some bits and pieces appearing, because obviously it has felt the last month or so, maybe 2 months, we have been in a little bit of a holding pattern.
Yep, the May update's done. All the patches for the May update's done. We're ready, and I still think this manganese build is 20H2, and somehow that'll end up 20H2. Although I still don't know how they're going to do that with the build numbers, because with 20H1 they just incremented it by 1, didn't they? I think, but they could still do that with these. I think that it's got to be something like that, hasn't it? Surely, and then we'll get a whole range of new features coming out in the summer. They may even announce the Windows 10X device hardware that show off all the new operating system and everything all in a summer event in July or August or something like that, and we'll all get excited for that.
Bless you, Ian. Bless you.
Over 10 years and still as optimistic as ever. Yeah, I think more likely we won't see a huge amount of changes for a while.
I mean, I think they are struggling to get 10X working, to be honest, or rather struggling to get it working to the point where it won't come and bite them if they hand it over to consumers. I think that's the issue right now, trying to get the performance up. That's, as I understand it, what the problem is. And again, looking at the date, we're now to June. I think if they were seriously going to get the devices out this year, we would have seen it by now. So I must admit, I can't be optimistic. I am optimistic for the Duo, and I think we'll probably see some announcements of devices, but I doubt they'll ship until next year now.
Well, it's certainly the Neo not until next year. I don't know whether we'll, like you said, we might not see a single screen even device ship this year. Maybe we'll see. We'll see. I'd like to see something for developers, at least some real image. What about the Duo then? What do you think about the Duo? When are we likely to see that announced and go on sale? I mean, it was already announced, but go on sale.
I don't know. I mean, as far as the phone cycle's concerned, I think they've got to really have. It's got to be in the hand. I guess probably by October, November time, if it's going to hit the holiday market, because they have said it's going to arrive before the holidays. So it's got to really hit probably September, October, and again, could be doable. I mean, Google have, I think, thrown them a slight life ring by saying that obviously Android 11 is being delayed, and I think they're planning to run it. Gary, you may know more than me here, but I think it's planned to run on Android 10 at the moment. But 11 would be very, very useful for some of the features.
Yeah, 11 would be fantastically useful for a lot of features. But I understand 10 is where they're going at the moment.
Yeah, so I don't know if they might use that as an excuse to slip it. I don't know, but I know certainly I'm aware of some people who have got the devices and are playing with them and are writing about them. So obviously, so does that mean it's going to hit? I hope it does. I hope it hits October time, because I think it'd be a very interesting device to see.
Yeah. So sooner the better, because I think the specs aren't brilliant for it's a 2019 specs, like the chipset and things. So I think they want to get that out the door as soon as possible before it becomes 2 generations behind instead of just 1.
Have we actually had the specs confirmed for sure?
I think we had the ARM chip. I can't remember which one it was now. 835 was it?
Yeah, because I know last year they were saying 835. I don't know if that's staying there all the way through to release, or
True.
The specs, because obviously those are what the prototypes using. It's just what's going to be out of the actual finally released hardware, which is the thing I'm not sure about.
Yeah, true.
They could switch it. I mean, that was definitely what was in the ones that they sent out for preview.
Yeah.
But the ones which were sent out for preview didn't have NFC either, which seems a shortcoming for the European market. But
yeah, that is the one thing that, of all the features, I'm not bothered about the cameras too much, but the NFC, I use contactless a lot, and the Samsung Pay on my Samsung Galaxy Active doesn't support my bank. Google Pay does, so I could wear a Google device. But if I do contactless, I don't want to get my card out, because that just seems a bit retro, especially in these days, trying to go contactless everywhere and not carry anything around with you. So to not have an NFC and not to have contactless payment is going to be a bit painful. I think that's going to be the one thing that would put me off it, really, as it was a daily device for me.
It's something which doesn't actually matter that much in the States, because contactless payment isn't as prevalent as it is over here. But certainly for Europe and here, I think it's a real shortcoming.
Yeah.
Soon, Garrett, it might be soon with the current situation with the virus. I mean, contactless is very much being pushed hard now, isn't it?
It is, and I mean, they've even talked about doing electronic banking over there between banks, which would be fundamentally amazing.
I think the other thing we shouldn't dismiss again. I'm very hopeful the camera will be better than what's been seen in the previews, because again, it's not great compared to other flagships. And this isn't going to be a cheap phone. We should keep that in mind. This won't be a cheap phone at all. So it's got to really be of a spec that's going to be at least comparable to mid-range Android. Some bits of it, if that preview spec is what ends up being shipped, I think they've got a problem on their hands, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I wonder whether they're just going to target developers with this, and as a niche device, and version 2 would be the thing that has the bigger consumer push next year.
Yeah, could be.
Well, I still need a phone, so as long as it's not outrageously expensive, then definitely be on my list of things to look at. I did try talking about the May 2020 update. Did you know that they reintroduce some of the Bluetooth stacks back into the update? The AD, well, let me get this right, AD2P, isn't it? Protocol. I didn't even know it wasn't in there anymore, but it turns out it was in Windows 8 and it got dropped somewhere. So the May update actually reintroduces that, which means you can receive and stream. Oh, it's A2DP, not a character from Star Wars, but a Bluetooth protocol. You can stream to a Windows 10 PC now if you've got the May update.
Yeah.
Microsoft haven't exposed any of the APIs directly in their own user interface, so you can't just do it. But a few developers have, and I found an app called Bluetooth Audio Receiver, which is a good name because it's exactly what it does. So you pair your phone up with your Surface or your PC, whatever.
Yeah. Open
this app, choose your phone, and then any audio that you've got on your phone will stream to your PC as though your PC was a Bluetooth speaker. And it actually works really well. So you can really play music on your phone and it'll just play through your PC speaker. So it works for videos, podcasts, anything with audio. You can use it as a Bluetooth speaker. So I haven't tested it, but I guess that you could use the Amazon devices. If you've got one without a speaker, you can have it in your PC because they support Bluetooth audio, don't they? So yeah. So I think any Bluetooth device should be able to send audio directly to Windows 10, and it worked over the headphones. I did try getting it working over the Surface earbuds, and it was a bit choppy on that. So I need to try it again. I wondered if it was stretching things a bit too far, going Bluetooth from the phone to the PC, then Bluetooth from the PC to the earbuds. It was probably a bit too much, really.
Probably a bit much, depending on the quality of your Bluetooth device and your PC.
Yeah. But actually, when you're using the headphones, it was great and it worked really well. Actually, and it mixes down with the rest of the audio and everything else. So you can use your PC as a Bluetooth speaker effectively, and I think with the little assistant devices that would actually be quite handy. Mm-hmm. It's like having the audio in effectively, isn't it? Like your audio in jack. But yeah, so the app's free, and I've got a little video of it working, so you can give that a try. But you need the May 2020 update because that's got the APIs in there. What else did I try this week? Oh, I tell you what I did try. Forget Cortana, forget your Amazon device, forget your Google Assistant. We've got Beeb now.
That's because you like the northern voice, isn't it? The northern male voice.
Yeah, that's right. So I was a bit of a surprise thing. I remember talking about this a few months ago, that the BBC were looking at something like this. But then when I saw this thing saying BBC for Windows Insider, I thought, really? Do BBC know what Windows Insider is? But yes, they do. BBC have got this new virtual assistant for Windows 10, and they're using the Windows Insider program and I think the reason for that is because you need the May update. So I think perhaps it may work if you've got the May 2020 update installed, even if you're not a Windows Insider. I haven't tried that because all my devices are on Insider devices that have got the update installed at the moment. But yeah, you can just get this from the store. It's called Beeb, and it's a beta. When you sign in with your BBC account, and then you can pick your language. And there's quite a language accents, and there's loads of accents on there. Did you see the list?
No, I've not used it.
So there was a ton of accents that it's got on there, including Northern English. So Lancashire's in there, which is good for me. But I noticed, like for Northern Ireland, I think there was 6 separate regions in Northern Ireland, and I know UK accents are always very, very regional. I noticed that for Lancashire, it just had Lancashire. You didn't have Wigan and it's separate from Bolton. So if anybody is from Bolton or from Wigan, you know that they're very different accents. But I guess it all comes under the same Lancashire accent. But I was surprised. It's a nice feature anyway. It's not something that any of the others have done. But what basically the assistant does is it's very basic at the moment. But you can say, "Okay, Beeb." That's I think you say "Okay, Beeb." Hey Beeb. I think it is, and it uses and this may be why it's only works with the May 20 update, is it listens for the keyword itself as a background application. And I think we discussed this a while ago, didn't we? This is an API change somewhere that was in the May 2020 update.
Yeah.
So you say like, hey Beeb, play Radio 1, and it plays Radio 1. Or you can say, play BBC Sounds, whatever. Essentially, it's a front end for BBC Sounds, it seems to me. The app that's sort of a collection of all the BBC podcasts and radio programmes. So anything that's on BBC Sounds, any of the podcasts or anything or any of the shows are on there, you can play. And it just plays them through. It's got a little user interface. It's got some other things as you would expect, like tell me a joke. It's got a QI fact. If you say tell me a fact, you get Sandy Toksvig reading you a QI fact, which always is the same fact. I don't know whether there's just one fact in there that the QI elves haven't programmed them all in yet, but it works quite well. But you can also do things like what's my weather, and it does your local forecast because it knows your location through the app as well. You can do what's the news, what's the news, what's the headlines, all that kind of thing as well. So I think it's like I said, it's essentially a front end to BBC services. No TV or anything like that. It's all audio. I don't know what the market is for this going forward. Whether they're going to would sell devices with this in. I'm not quite sure. Whether they would set to it as a service that would fit alongside existing apps, because you can already get most of the BBC content, I guess, through an Amazon device. But you can use Beeb anyway. So maybe this will come to it'll come to other devices like TVs and things like that, and you can control your TV through it. I don't know, but that's a fun little app, and it's all been developed using Azure as the back end.
It is fun. I must admit, I can't really work out what the point of it is at the moment, but yes, it is a fun thing.
I think part of it was, I think the BBC said last year or whenever they first talked about it, it was about being regional and regional, local, and being control of their own content. I guess that's part of it as well. But yeah, unless you, if you looked at the usage model or the usage of the Amazon and Google devices, I guess most of them are for perhaps kicking off music playback. I don't know. I don't know if you've seen any stats. Is that the most common use for these devices at the moment? Music playback.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and calls. I mean, there does seem to be a growth in family calling, but that may be because of the current situation more than anything else.
So maybe a BBC one that's got all the playback of BBC services is a good idea. I can't see how many people are using it, especially at the moment. If it's just Windows 10 May 2020 update and Windows Insiders, you've got a small subset. But great to see it. When was the last time we got something new from BBC just for Windows?
Yes.
It could be a while ago. So I guess you could, if you could hack up a little Raspberry Pi running, if you could somehow get Windows 10 working on it, you could make your own like Amazon type standalone device with that. But yeah, there you go. So I recorded a little video of that, and you can try it out yourself if you've got May 2020 update, and it is geo-locked as well. So I had a few people complaining, but so what? It's about time we had something geo-locked for us. Right, what else did we have this week as well?
I've got one thing here. Isn't this week the 20th anniversary of when the US Justice Department was going to break up Microsoft?
Is it?
I think it's this week, isn't it? I'm just wondering obviously that was overturned a year later, but just wondering what you guys think about. Obviously Microsoft went down one way and they stayed together. What do you think would have happened if they had been broken up?
They'd have moved to Canada.
Interesting. Yeah. What would we? I don't know. How lines do you think they would have split between the business division and the consumer? Yeah,
I think the plan was to sort of break the OS, the PCOS division away from apps. So things like, because obviously the big paranoia then was about Internet Explorer, how things changed, and obviously Office. So do you think we'd have seen a change of approach from the Microsoft apps company versus the Microsoft OS company, and it's just an interesting what if.
It is an interesting what if, yeah. I mean, I was very serious with the move to Canada thing as well, because actually was one of the plans at one point that they might just hop up above the border and get around it that way. But I don't know what would happen then. I suspect the US Justice Department may have looked poorly on that, and there might have been other issues arrived. But I mean, it certainly would have been very different. I know there was actually, I mean, one bit of very wild talk at one point was that even Apple were interested in buying Office off Microsoft if that had happened, which could have been very interesting.
Yeah.
So we could have all been using Lotus Smart Suite now instead of Office.
Yeah, we could have been, or we could have been running Office on Linux desktops.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine how that would have been, how that would have worked. But then if you look at now, I mean, the apps division is essentially is really the future. The back, you've got the Azure stuff, which is the future of Microsoft, as we kind of know. But the apps division is doing really well, but not necessarily on its own platform. So especially Office and OneNote and all the To-Do and all these other apps that are running on iOS and Android, Launcher and everything else. You probably wouldn't have predicted that 20 years ago.
And it's all, but of course, it's all back-ended by Azure. I mean, I think the concern then was the Microsoft would just keep on bundling things in with Windows and try to force out the distribution. In many ways, I mean, if you think about it, it kind of has. I mean, there's no real commercial alternative to Office I'm aware of. I mean, obviously you got the open source versions like LibreOffice, but I can't think of a commercial competitor to Office at all at the moment, and that's probably it. IE, as we know, has died to death. Even Microsoft is trying to kill away. But I guess back in 2000, nobody could have predicted the rise of Google, could they? So
no, that's right. And I think the competitors at the time you would probably thought were IBM, who 20 years ago they would have still owned Lotus Smart Suite, wouldn't they then? So a Domino on the back end.
Yeah. I mean, had OS2 been killed by then? I can't remember if OS2 was still.
Yeah, 20 years ago. Yeah. There wasn't really. Yeah, there wasn't a huge. The Lotus product suite was probably the closest to go. I mean, maybe that was skewed. My view was skewed because that was the area that I was in at the time. But Lotus Domino and Lotus Notes was a good alternative to Exchange. Maybe 20 years ago it was. So that meant that if you were using that as a back end, then you would be inclined to use Lotus Smart Suite, although that was dying a bit of a death 20 years ago, I guess.
Of course, one could also argue that if Microsoft had, they did lose, I guess, the best part of a decade because they were shackled by the restrictions and things, the antitrust regs that came after that. If they hadn't had those restrictions and the OS and apps team went off and did their own thing, perhaps things might have developed a lot faster anyway.
Yeah, and I suppose the convergence of consumer and business operating systems, which happened around, from 2000, 2002 to XP time, perhaps there wouldn't have been that conversion. Perhaps we would have seen this a consumer-orientated operating system that would have been fast. They would have had faster responses to tablets and things like that, and iPods, and rather than being just a few steps behind, and that would have been different. A smaller company may have been more agile.
Yeah, it is a really interesting thought experiment. And you also wonder how that would affect developers as well, because obviously back then Microsoft was very much a developer company as well as an OS and products company, and whether we would have seen the likes of Visual Studio being developed as much as it has, and the various language in which came out of Microsoft being developed, whether that would have slipped by the wayside.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
I mean, obviously VS Code is now the cross-platform thing. Perhaps Visual Studio could have been the cross-platform offering back then. A lot because Microsoft, of course, originally was a cross-platform apps company. That's what they did in the 70s. Yeah. They were very much cross-platform. So maybe they actually would have gone back to that approach. It's very interesting just thinking about what could have happened, and as opposed to what did happen.
Yeah, and when you look now, that really like you said, the competition of those like office suites and kind of thing, which were what was a lot of the worry was about, wasn't it? Bundling those, that has disappeared, but it's kind of changed. It's now like Google services and sort of web stuff, which 20 years ago, it seems 20 years ago in some respects seems a long time, but for the web was established then, wasn't it? So, but we didn't really kind of see that way of working that we do now, where you can just completely work in a browser. I mean, some people that if you're using Chrome OS or something like that, you work totally in a browser. You don't need any desktop applications.
But of course, you always could. ActiveX documents, come on now.
Oh yeah,
indeed.
I remember playing with those in the first version. It was VB6 was the first one where you could create ActiveX documents. I think VB6 it would have been. I remember doing that. It was amazing that you could get it to run in the browser, and then it ran desktop applications in the browser. Amazing. Exactly. Security might have been an issue, but we'll be fine. Full access to the C drive, no worries. What were they called? Dynamic documents? I can't remember what it was. Visual Basic 6 had some stuff around that was effectively ActiveX technologies. Those were the days. Visual Basic 6. Take me back to those simpler days. Mm-hmm. No frameworks, no nothing else. Just fire up your software tool and start developing.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right, Richard. It's very difficult to think how things would have changed, and maybe this open Microsoft that we see now engaging Linux on Azure and GitHub and open source projects and cross-platform development and all that kind of thing would have happened a long time ago if that had been the case, and there wasn't so much the focus on Windows as a platform. Because there are, I think there were stories that before Microsoft went all in and bringing Office to all the different platforms, which has been really successful, that was blocked multiple times, wasn't it, over the years? But I think Office for the iPad could have happened a lot sooner. I mean, you think now it's just there, isn't it? But when it's not, the iPad had been out for quite a while before you could get the full Office apps.
I kind of want to say it took until Barmer left, I think, before things picked up there, but I could be completely wrong on that. That's kind of feels like the time frame when Office for iPad and iOS really became a thing.
Yeah, because you had what was it, Zoho? Was it Zoho Office? I think it was called. I remember installing some third-party app and having £3 app or something to be able to open an Excel file on an iPad. And I was one of those things, I've got to edit this file and all I've got is an iPad. So I thought, okay. But now, of course, you've got your full productivity suite with Office 365 or Microsoft 365 everywhere. But it's not that long ago when the iPad, had apps. You had to third-party apps were the only choice. Even Apple didn't have a very good. I think Apple's basic iOS word processor and Excel, and spreadsheets. What they called? Was it Numbers? I think it's still called Numbers, isn't it? And that kind of thing. They weren't brilliant with the Microsoft app, with the Microsoft documents. I remember scrambling to find some app, and I had to buy something to get it to work. But now you just take for granted you can edit these documents everywhere.
Exactly.
So maybe that would have happened sooner. I wonder whether we would have got in terms of Windows development. Now they tried to build one operating system for business and enterprise and consumers, and whether that would have been different. But I think they would have split. Would we had a consumer version of Windows like we did pre-2000s, with 95 and 98 and everything, and then you had the NT4 and the business application. I wonder we would have seen those that convergence of operating systems.
Yeah, definitely interesting stuff.
It's it seems all kind of inevitable when you look at it now that they had to converge, and now everybody's using, from the Windows XP days, everyone was using the same operating system, no matter where you worked. But we're still. You look at Windows 10 Home to Windows 10 Professional. There's not a huge amount of difference now, is there? When you look at the difference, it's not really a consumer SKU and an enterprise SKU. It's just a few features like Hyper-V and join into domain. There's very specific things. It's not like a different look and feel for consumers that there is for business. Yeah. That's maybe where Windows 8 went wrong. Perhaps Windows 8 would have been better if they'd had a consumer OS with the Windows 8 start menu and a business OS, which is what effectively Windows 10 desktop turned out to be. I don't know whether that would have been different, but we've seen how these software companies, the smaller companies, that were always doing merging, and so even a split company properly by now may have ended up back a single company again, because you've seen all these merged acquisitions and everything else over the time. So we may not even see any difference at all. Maybe we'd still have Amiga OS and we'd all be using Commodore Amigas in an alternate timeline.
Or Atari STs.
Yeah, or Rich's favourite Atari TI 99.
Atari TI 99. Already 15 years dead by then, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. What if Atari had bought TI? Back when they had money.
Yeah, imagine. Yeah, what if Commodore had won or Atari had won it? There's a lot of interesting things around that. That's a slightly more smaller group of fiction, of alternate timeline fiction, slightly more niche than the already fairly niche areas.
Yep.
Maybe someone could write The Man with the High Castle Cat type storyline with us all using Commodore Amigas. Well, moving to more recent news, I do my monthly look at the SteamVR statistics, and I know I've mentioned it before, it's not very scientific because it's just kind of a snapshot of survey, although it's a bit more robust now because it tracks what equipment you're using over the month rather than just as a one-off check. You see that Windows Mixed Reality, despite not having any headsets really to be able to buy, it grew again. It's 8.8% till that we've bottomed out and we're climbing back up again.
Yeah.
We're back.
I think this word "back" you keep saying doesn't quite mean what you think it means.
It's still alive. That's all that matters.
Exactly. That's still alive. Yeah.
I mean, that's perhaps more an indicator of maybe the fact that the VR market isn't growing particularly. Because let's face it, you can't really buy much in the way of Windows VR headsets, can you? So it seems to be an indicator that perhaps the VR market isn't growing as fast as one might hope.
Yeah, I think
Jason would be pleased.
Yeah, because the real change in market share in May was the mixed reality was up sort of quarter of a percent, and the Quest was up 1.43%, which is probably more about availability than anything else. Are you still using your Quest, Richard?
Yeah, it's great. Quest is brilliant. Yeah, it's a great device, and but I gather no one can buy them, so that's I think a slight issue. Yeah.
I think when the HP hits the market, you might see a slight increase, but I don't think we're looking at mass adoption device here. It's a very niche device as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think really for VR, the hope was devices like the Quest, would drive the market share, because the problem with the HP device is, while it's neat and enthusiasts will probably buy it, you need a hulkingly great, powerful PC to run the thing. Whereas, your Quest is more like a console type purchase.
Yeah,
it's sort of a single player console type purchase.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be one of those niche things, isn't it? The Quest is the thing that's going to sell the most, I think. But then you've got the Rift S and the devices that are probably the best devices for gaming. But I think this HP one is going to be a pretty good device for gaming on. But like I said, you need a decent PC. But that's going to appeal to enthusiasts. So maybe that's where HP and Microsoft and Valve can see where the money is, that they just make a good competitor to the Rift.
And again, I'm just looking, and yet again, the Quest remains out of stock. So
yeah, because Steam Valve have got the Valve Index. I know it's a popular device, but do you think is that a device that you can buy now, or is that one of those ones that's sold out and not coming back in, and maybe Valve will push to the HP device instead?
I don't know, actually. It's a good question. I'm not sure if I don't have figures on that. I know people are definitely struggling to get hold of the Quest. But the Valve Index, I don't know about, actually. I mean, I know some devices, like some of the HTTC devices, are also quite easy to get hold of. So, yeah, I don't know yet, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I think I think it's pretty good that Microsoft are continuing to support the platform, and I think while you've got Steam content there, you're not relying on the Microsoft Store. I think you're okay, really. I think that's probably the moral of a lot of the stories with a lot of products around Microsoft stuff at the moment. If you're not 100% reliant on the store, then you're okay. So that's why Windows 10S doesn't do so well, and everything else is fine.
Yeah, I've just checked the Valve Index, and yeah, it's 8 or more weeks delay for shipments.
Yeah, but it's interesting that because the overall VR was something like 1% down over 8. So it's not like that suddenly everybody's using VR. 1%. So, it says the VR headsets is 25%. I think that seems probably quite high, really. I think we said that last time, didn't we? It seems quite a significant amount of people using VR, really, on Steam. 25% people or systems.
Yeah, does that mean 25% of systems are capable, or it can't be 25% of Steam users are using VR? Surely that seems enormous.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? So, no, that's the Vive, the top one.
Oh.
I think it's this chart. I'm just looking at this chart on Steam's website. They don't break out the figure like as a total. They just there we go. So something slightly more realistic. 1.92%.
That sounds more like it, yeah.
That sounds much more like it.
Of that 1.92%, Windows Mixed Reality has got 8% of 1.92%. Okay, that sounds more like it, yeah.
Yeah, the 25% is Vive, is the top device of 25% of 1.92%.
Yeah, so it's still unfortunately a big niche, and I do think it's been a bit of a wasted opportunity for the VR vendors. Certainly the last 3 months, because everyone's been in lockdown, and I've just had people shrieking saying they cannot get these devices because the supply chains are just so badly disrupted. I mean, I'm not sure that Oculus ever really recovered particularly well from the Christmas rush. So, but I do wonder if there was a missed opportunity. Because certainly, if you're, I know when we did the VR show at that time, you can certainly see how something like Teams or whatever would really benefit from a VR option. And it's one of the things they always show off when they're showing off enterprise versions of HoloLens and other headsets. Having virtual conferences and virtual meeting rooms, which are much better than staring at a screen in Teams. It's to actually better have the spatial awareness of people around you, where people are talking from, and turning to look at people is so much better as a virtual remote working experience. So I have been, I guess, a little surprised and disappointed that it's not taken off more.
Yeah, I think if it was going to take off at any time, now would be the time.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see. I've just had a look at the Windows, the OS versions. Windows 10 64-bit is 85% on Steam. And the second most popular is Windows 7 64-bit, 6.58%.
But what about Linux and the desktop? Come on.
Linux
is it?
It's 0.15. You've gone to 18. Mac, well, it gets. I think OS X overall is 4% of on Steam, and Linux overall is 0.91%. So a good install base. It's interesting to see Windows 10. Well, I guess it just says Windows 10, so I suppose that's the 32-bit version. Is 0.19%. So really, everybody's on. We talked about them not supporting Windows 10 on 32-bit a while ago, and people are getting a bit shocked. What, Microsoft not supporting Windows 10 anymore? But if you're looking on the Steam, it's 0.19% of actually running on 32-bit systems. So, those are probably those old tablets or upgrades, aren't they? Those little 64 meg tablets or the 64 gig drive tablets or the upgrades.
You can't imagine many Steam gaming rigs running 32-bit.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Microsoft never ever publishes any useful telemetry, because obviously they know exactly what's using what, where these systems are, but they sadly don't seem to want to share that information.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's pretty clear. 85% using Windows 10 64-bit. It's funny, isn't it? It doesn't seem that long ago since 64-bit was a bit of an exotic installation. When I think it was Windows 7, wasn't it? Was the first to support 64-bit, but you had to get a special version of it, I think, didn't you, at the time?
64-bit XP at one time or something.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I think there was. It does ring a bell.
There was definitely an XP64, but it wasn't, as you write, in anybody's radar until Windows 7 came along.
Sure. Yeah. Well,
it just shows you it just shows you how things how things move on.
I've just put something in the chat which I discovered a couple of days ago and may eventually get some review kit for, but I just think this is really funny. Have you thought about trying Cybershoes?
Cybershoes for walking in VR games. So how does that work?
Well, apparently you sit on the seat that they provide as part of this, out on the mat, and then you effectively walk on these shoes, which you don't go anywhere, obviously, but it becomes the natural, the sort of technique of walking. I have no idea how they actually measure the pressure in that. I mean, at 400 quid, I don't think I'd probably be rushing out and buying them anyway, especially since I haven't actually got them.
It says it supports Windows mixed reality.
It does, yeah, and Valve,
HTC Vive, and all the usual things, yeah.
And Rift, yeah.
Quest. So this is a way, I guess, of simulating walking in a game. I'm just looking at the picture that I'll include on the show notes, a link for this. But yeah, so it's a way of it thinking that you're walking, isn't it? Along. That's very funny.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever walked sitting down before, though. I'm not sure quite how that works. But
you look like Davros trying to wheel around.
Well, I mean, I presume it must measure how your feet are moving. Then surely it's got to, because the sensors are tracking your position, aren't they, at the base station? Yeah. So I guess somehow it must be overriding those in some way. Oh, well. Yeah. Gary, you should definitely get those and try them out.
Please do. Please do that on video.
Please do
me, I would try it on video if I get a chance. I've just got to borrow a mixed reality headset if I'm going to do that. I've got a laptop which will cope with that now, so it's probably a good thing.
Oh yeah, I definitely want to see doing that, because that is one of the things that a lot of games really covered that pretty well. You've got the I can't remember, there's a special name, isn't it? It's teleportation within the game. But there's an actual name for that motion, where you move the thumbstick and it gives you the little arch, and then that effectively teleports you, because that stops you getting motion sickness. Whereas if you use a game where, if you've ever played any VR games where you use the thumbstick to move around like you would do in a first-person shooter on a game, that causes motion sickness because you floaty. But when you use the teleport, that gets around it. But so I guess these shoes would be so that you can avoid that motion sickness by walking around. Yeah, well, Gary, when you get one of those, please let us know. We want to see that. Watching you wander around your house, but yeah, you don't move here because you're on the wheelie.
Yeah, on the wheelie thing.
Yeah. Oh, that's too weird. I'm not sure about that. But that's where having a wireless headset would be good as well, because you wouldn't get tangled up in any of the wires. What else have I got to mention? I recorded a quick video of the microphone I used for last week's show, the TONOR USB-C. I'm on the blue microphone tonight, so I thought I'd try and see if we can see a difference. When you're using Teams to record it, actually, its own compression algorithm seems to mask any changes with the microphone, so it doesn't seem to make a huge amount of difference. But a nice little light microphone that I used last week, so I've recorded a little video so anyone can try that and hear the difference. I'm getting quite used to editing my videos now with Camtasia with the Surface dial. That works really well for doing video editing. So if anybody's wondering what to do with that useless Surface dial that you bought and you never get to use it, now I'm actually getting some good use out of it now with my for video editing. I'm also getting good use out of the Surface earbuds, which I'm going tonight as well. I've got really used to wearing them now, so I don't really can't really feel them in anymore now. So I really like them, actually. I've got used to wearing them. I just wish there was a better way of switching between devices so that I could have it hooked up to the PC, and then if a phone call came in, switch it over automatically to the phone. But can't do that. But I don't know whether that's something that you can do with the new Surface Headphone 2s, because that launched. Didn't they send the actually shipped this week, wasn't it? The Surface Headphone 2 and the Surface Book 3.
Yep, they did indeed. I know people have got them.
Yeah, I've seen a few pictures of people. I've not actually read any reviews of the Surface Book 3. It's a nice device. It's just not something that, for price and just the form factor, is not really something that I would really need. They're nice beefy machines, but it's just not thing for me. But I've seen them started to ship now. Richard, have you got one on order?
No.
You could buy 2 Dells for the price of one Surface Book 3, I think.
Yeah, I mean it's a neat looking device. It's a bit of a beast, but yeah, it's a lot of money. I'm just still not convinced by the hinge and the sheer weight of the thing, really.
Mm-hmm. I must admit, I did look. I mean, that's something I mentioned a few weeks ago. I was looking for a new laptop, and I did look, and then I decided, well, I can buy a 15-inch Spectre, because I wanted a 15-inch screen, for around about £400 on eBay, and upgrade it for a couple £100, which I did. So I've now got a 32 gigabyte Spectre with 2 terabyte drive in, as I mentioned last week, and it flies, and it's got a good graphics chip, and getting the same spec on any form of service book, even the original one, would have possibly over £1,000, and it's just crazy that you've got to pay that premium. Lovely design, I get that, but as Richard rightly says, they're very heavy.
Yeah, they are. I think that's the beautiful devices, but I think you've got to be in the market for that particular form factor and have the finance to go with it for it really to be worthwhile.
Well, I think you got to really want one, to be honest. It's device, yeah, you got to really want to have that, and the pop-up screen, which again, I read a lot of people saying it's a neat pop-up screen when it works, and then after a while it stops working. So it's just like, yeah. I mean, I'm with Gary. It's just there are much better ways of spending your money and having change to have a nice holiday somewhere.
Yeah.
Have holidays.
And even from an enterprise, I don't think it's really that much of an enterprise device, because most of the time, when you're rolling out a lot of devices, you tend to go for a standard device. Like I use the Dell. Because we get them in volume, but then when you get certain special requests, maybe from directors and things like that, they're not after something like that. They want a Surface Pro or a Surface laptop, but the book is just not the right form factor for them. So I don't even get requests from people asking for those at all at work.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, do you reckon, Gary, that the Surface Laptop 3 in many ways kind of does it undercut the Surface Book 3 as a developer machine? Because it's a
oh yeah.
It's a good in Microsoft software. I mean, the Laptop 3 is a beast as well.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and yeah. I mean, there's very little I can see other than the fact that it hasn't got a detachable screen that would make you want to go for the book.
Maybe graphics card, perhaps at the end.
Yeah, maybe no graphics card, but that is something. But yeah, I mean, that's an interesting constant thing anyway. But as a developer, you very rarely need that graphics. I mean, I use it for a lot of other things, the graphics, but the only reason I've really upgraded this laptop for graphics-wise is because I need to video edit. Before that point, I really didn't need it as a developer, unless I was going to write games, which obviously, or VR.
Well, we'll soon be streaming from xCloud anyway, won't we? So
yeah.
I think the Surface Book 3 is, if you wanted to do VR or gaming, is a good device for that. But for that money, you can buy a really meaty gaming device. So it's not one thing or the other, perhaps. But I mean, it's a great device. I really like it.
Or you could buy a cheaper laptop with Thunderbolt on it and plug an external graphics box on it. Yeah. No, you probably don't want to use Thunderbolt. But
Don't mention Thunderbolt. I mean, I bought a gaming laptop specifically for the VR stuff, and I use that all the time for that. And the Surface is something else, and that's still the Surface Laptop 2 and the gaming laptop cost me less than the Surface Book. And I've got 2 devices, but one is I carry around one, and one stays in my office and does the VR stuff.
Yeah. So in answer to your question, no, I haven't got an order.
No. Okay. Well, I'll let you off then. Right, well, I think that's just about everything we've got time for this week. Richard, where can we find you? And I'll include links, show notes to your little piece on the 2020 update. I thought it was quite interesting.
You can find me on Twitter at Richard_Speed.
Excellent. And Gary, where can we find you?
You can find me at Garry with 2 R's WMA on Twitter, which also has links to everything else I do. So Fascinating Tech, the iPace Owner channel, lots of other things.
You can go out in your iPace again now.
I can, and I have actually. I had actually did some running around of healthcare equipment a couple of weeks ago. So I was asked if I wouldn't mind doing it because it wasn't going to cost me anything. Because I had lots of electricity in my car, and took a long trip up north, which was really interesting actually, because I charged at the Fastnet chargers, which are near Sunderland, which first time I charged on a Fastnet since my trip to Berlin, and it actually recognised my car when I plugged it in, and said, hello, Mr. Whittaker, and started charging.
Electricity and your credit card.
And my card, yes.
Tracking you. That's the way. Wherever you go, it's tracking you. It's always watching. I was surprised, Gary. I think
that was exactly how charging should work. You just plug it in and it charges, a bit like Tesla does, but more generically. So, yeah, I was pleased with that.
I was surprised, Gary, you mentioned the I think UK Power.
Oh, yeah.
I think coal has gone now.
Yeah. 3 months, isn't that something like that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm on Octopus Agile, and I've been paid for electricity an awful lot over this last few weeks, so my bill is incredibly low compared to last year.
Yeah, that's really good. Well, I'll include links for everything we talked about in the show notes. Hopefully we'll have a new build of Windows 10 to play with this week, so it's a bit more fun. But I'm not holding my breath. I think we might have a few more weeks wait for that. But we'll see you back here, same time, same place next week, or on YouTube, or on you can get on podcasts, wherever you want to listen to or watch us, you can find us. Right, so until next week, I'll see you then.
Take care.
Yeah.
Thanks to Gary and Richard. We're back same time, same place next week. You can email me, ian@digitallife.com. I'm at IronSticks on Twitter. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.